Today we're going to do about talk about counseling skills. I understand that you're young leaders pursuing different fields, leading different groups in church. I had spoken to Pastor Evans and he enlightened me about that. So let me see. So today we're going to talk about counseling skills, and just to let you know what, just maybe a definition or maybe an understanding what counseling skills is. What is a skill? A skill basically is maybe the ability, it could be proficiency, competency, you're expert in any activity, some activity that you're strong in. And also a skill could be something that you have acquired through training. Okay. And when you're talking about skills, there's something called attitude. That skill that you have, you also have to have a good attitude towards that. And an attitude, basically, I would define it as a attitude, as a frame of mind. The way you frame your mind matters. And I would say that a combination of attitude and skills, they're essential in counseling. So, so I will start by the first skill that we have for today is the attending skills. And under attending skills, as a counselor, and remember that you people as young people that you're going to deal with different, you deal with different kind of youngsters, young people who come your way. Though I've used the word counselor, but your caregivers, your helpers in different capacities. And so one of the skills that we use in counseling is the attending skills. So in attending skills, there are things that we consider. And as I said, attending skill is a quality of the counselor's presence as the caregiver's presence. When you meet somebody in, when you're meeting a client or a counselee or your friend that that needs to share something with you, your presence there matters. The quality that you as a person, as a counselor, as a caregiver, as your presence really matters. And during attending skills, the thing is you have to give the undivided attention. You have to be present. You have to be there. You have to pay attention to one another, to the person that you're interacting with at that moment. And attending skills involve the social skills. They involve attending physically and psychologically. The attending skills involve observation. There are things that you need to observe, even as you're meeting with the person that you'll be interacting with. It also involves listening. And some of the skills under social skills, as we know, things like greeting. And when you're greeting somebody, when you're greeting the person that you will be interacting with, or person who has come for counseling or for assistance, it is good to call them by name. It is important you mention their name. And also another skill that you can use, that is the greeting skills. You can also use the politeness skills, how you welcome them in that setup that you'll be having at that moment. Kindness skills. I find that it is difficult for some people to be kind to one another because as young people, the way you interact with one another really matters, because the kindness is when when in that position, in that situation, just telling them to sit down so that you can be able to understand, be able to interact very well. Politeness is something that is inward, it's something that is inside. Okay, so some of the skills that I decided to also to incorporate is the love and warmth. Considering that we're in church, we operate with, we interact with people from different levels, and when dealing with love and warmth, it is important to know that you as a helper, you have to show the unconditional acceptance to the helper, to help that person who has come for assistance, to have that desire to be able to change and to be able to grow in another level. As a helper, you have to acknowledge, how do you show that love? How do you show that warmth? You have to acknowledge that person that has come. You have to affirm that person. You have to show concern to that person. And also take note that it doesn't mean when you're showing love and acceptance to that person, sometimes people come with different issues. And the issues that they have brought in your setup when you're doing your counseling or you're assisting that person is a situation whereby you do not approve of. Is a situation whereby you do not agree with. It's a behavior that is not nice. Let me use that word, not nice, acceptable. But it doesn't mean that when you show love and warmth, it doesn't mean that you're approving of that behavior. It just shows that you care of that person. It simply means that you're loving, you're accepting that person unconditionally, without condemning the action, but you just showing love to that person. And that skill is normally very difficult, because at that moment you're divided. You have a divided attention. You don't know what to love. You don't know if I should show love. You don't know if I should accept this. You don't know if I should judge that person. So that is a skill, that's something that you have to grow. You have to nurture it slowly by slowly. Another skill that I would suggest, or tell you through, is the observation skills. The observation skills, as a counselor, for us, it means to pick, you're able to pick the nonverbals messages from the client, from the person who has come for the assistance or for help. So it means that you pick the nonverbals, the things that maybe the person is frowning, the person is sad. You have to pick those nonverbals. The person may not be talking, but those are important things to observe. The purpose of observing is to understand the client, how the client is feeling, how the client is going, whatever is going through the person. You to observe the nonverbals data in the client. In these observing skills, these are the things that you need to observe. There are 5 levels that you need to observe when you're observing, when you're doing the observing skills. And you have to observe the physically. You have to observe the level of the energy of that person. You have to observe physical appearance and the dressing of that person when the person is approaching you. You need to know interpersonally. You have to observe the degree of congruence. That the congruence means genuineness of that person. You have to note the discrepancies between you and what you're hearing and what you're seeing in that person. Those are the things, those are the 5 levels that you need to observe in a person when a person comes to you for counseling, for assistance, okay? Another skill that is so important in counseling skills is listening skills. And skills are needed to ensure the counselor hears, understands, and interprets the information accurately. So one of the basic needs that people need, all of us need, is to be understood. It is a basic need. To be understood is a basic need. It's very important. When somebody misunderstands you, you find it difficult. And I say, and listening skills make people feel that you respect them. It makes people feel that you value them. It makes people feel that you affirm what they're doing. It makes people feel that you love and appreciate. And listening skills is one of the most important skills in counseling skills. And under listening skills, we have the active listening. And under the active listening skills, the active listening skills involves hearing and understanding the client's verbal message. It involves understanding the problem situation and behaviors and the specific experience the client or the person is going through. So active listening goes beyond just listening only, just hearing only, because there's a difference between hearing and listening. And then we have the empathic listening. Under empathic listening, we say is a discipline within yourself to see through the user or within the client or the person who has come for assistance to you. Under empathic listening is listening to understand, not just to listen just normally, but just to help. It's something that you cannot, it's something that cannot be expressed, but it's inward. It's an inward thing. It's a discipline, as I've said. It's a discipline within yourself. So under listening, I would tell you that when you're listening to a person who has come for assistance, or a person who's come for just for help, first thing is do not judge the person. Do not judge the person is very important. Rather, try to understand the person. It's like to walk, under listening is that you try to walk into that person's shoes, trying to understand that person. What is he going through? What is it all about? You know? And empathic listening, I will tell you, it is the highest level of listening. It is the highest level of listening because it's something that you cannot see, and it is the hardest to accomplish, you know. And okay, so another skill and another thing that I would bring to your attention is the encouraging. Now, because we're in church, we are interacting with other people. When you encourage that person is able to open up. It is very essential to facilitate confidence when you encourage that person. It helps them to see themselves in a positive light. It helps them the client or the person to be able to progress in whatever situation or issues they have. So encouragement is very key. Another skill that I would bring to your attention is about challenging skill. And here, challenging skill, I would tell you that it invites the client to critically examine, to examine themselves internally and externally. When you challenge that person, it doesn't mean that you're challenging that person so that for your own benefit. It is for the benefit of the client, and you do not have to be you don't have to be judgmental. It helps the clients to see the person or the client to be able to view his behavior in a different manner, and be able to deal with whatever is making him to feel defeated or harmful things that he might be experiencing, and be able to change in a better way. That is why you use the challenging skill. And challenging skill, you have to be very careful when you're using it, because the tone of voice, the words that you use, even when you're challenging the person who has come for assistance. And when do you challenge? When do you challenge? You challenge when you challenge when the subjective reality of the client needs to be tested. And when you challenge when the client is only using a fraction of their potential. The person may be having very good skills, maybe very good ideas, but he doesn't want to think beyond, beyond outside the box. So you're able to challenge, but in a very wise, useful manner, and be careful when you're challenging the person who has come to be challenged. And so the goals of challenging, I would tell you that they're to invite the clients for them to change their ways. So when you're inviting the client to change their ways, you're helping them to think, to express their emotion, to be able to react differently, to look at their actions, to help them to keep track of their problems, to prevent them from identifying, to prevent them from thinking negatively about themselves, and to be able to identify and develop opportunities within themselves. So it is important when you're challenging your client or your person who has come for assistance to you, that you observe some of the things that I've mentioned here. And 1 minute. And another skill that I would tell you is about probing skills. So when you're probing the person who has come to you, so remember, probing is to check, is to examine, is to investigate, not investigating like the one that we use in the maybe in the court of law or any other thing, but investigate in a good way, in a good manner, without provoking the person who has come for assistance to you. Also is a means to try to discover the information that the other person might not be sharing with you. So it is important to probe, but probe in a very skillful manner, in a very wise way. So some examples of probing questions that I would tell you is there are many questions that you can use when in probing. And the questions that I'll tell you is that you can use open new, when you're using probing, it helps you to open new areas of discussions. It helps you to clarify what the person is saying. It helps you to invite clients to think or call, you know. It also helps you to, information can help the client, when you're probing, the client might be thinking, this information is helpful. Whatever you have told him is very helpful. So that information, while you're probing, helps that client to think deeper and to think even better. And also probing helps in journey of exploration. The client is able to explore other ideas, other avenues during probing. And there are types of questions that you use when probing. And I would tell you that there are questions, there are many types of questions that we can use in counseling, and actually we use in counseling. There are closed questions, and in these closed questions usually begin with have, do, what. They are closed. You cannot explore further. So these questions are least helpful. So you don't use those kind of questions when you're probing, when you're with your client, or with the person who has come for assistance. And normally a why question is very judgmental. So try and avoid why questions. They put the client on the defensive end. It is more useful to ask, what caused you to do this and that, but not to use a why question. And when you're with your client or with your person who has come for assistance, avoid using rapid fire questions, several questions at the same time. Try and use questions which will help the client to think, not and ask questions one at a time. And another type of question, and the most useful question, is most useful. These are the open-ended questions. These are questions that cannot be answered using one word. Because when you ask that client a good question, an open-ended question, the client or the person is able to explore or explain or even tell you more about what situation, what is happening in his world or in her world. They encourage the client to speak and offer opportunity for the counselor to gather more information from the client, and you will be able to assist the client or the person who has come. And another thing is that an open-ended question may begin with, what happened? How can you be helped? Or could there be something else that could be happening? So those are important questions. So and now I'll go back. I'm trying to catch up with time. That's why I'm going very fast. So I will do the counseling ethics. And under counseling ethics, I just want us to reflect on this. What I'm projecting now is, I'm asking you a question. Have you ever told someone something in confidence, only to discover later that the confidence was not kept? And the question is, how did you feel after you discovered that? What are some of the repercussions of that violation and during that session? So counseling skills, under counseling skills, we have what we called the ethics. And counseling ethics is important. When you're dealing with your client or the person who has come for assistance, is quite very important, because there are things that we need to observe. The things that are important that we need to observe. We do not just work like that. There are controls that we have to put. There are measures, there are moral standards. the ethics, as I've said here, it is anchored on the moral standards that we follow. The ethics, they help us to make decisions. And under the professional ethics conduct, code of conduct, as counselors, we deal with 3 types of ethical professional issues. And these are the moral issues, the legal issues, the ethical issues. So under the moral issues, we have what we consider is what is right and what is wrong. Is it acceptable, or is it unacceptable to the society or individuals? Under the legal issues, what we consider is lawful. Is it lawful? Is it unlawful? Under the ethical issues are the set of guidelines under the professional guideline. So under the in counseling, we have general ethical principles that we normally follow. And this refers to the set of basic ethics that govern how counselors should handle clients in a counseling relationship. And the major general ethical principles that we follow is the autonomy, the beneficence, maleficence, and justice, and fidelity. So under the autonomy, what happens is giving clients space and freedom of thought and choice of freedom. So when you have your client or the person who has come for assistance in church or in wherever space they have come, make sure you give them freedom of choice, freedom to talk. Do not impose your values in them. Be very careful. So fostering and autonomy means that you foster the independence of a client and reducing the independence of a client. Fostering the independence of a client and reducing the dependency of a client, so that a client cannot depend on your decision. Whatever you say is right. So you give them the independence to decide, to do what they want to be able to do, and say whatever they want to do. And remember, this is not imposing values on or influencing the decision of the client. So make sure you do not influence. Make sure you do not influence their decision. You give them the autonomy, the right, the freedom to choose and say what they want. This is informing the clients the rights. And under counseling, what normally happens here is that you inform the clients their rights and the limits of confidentiality. So sometimes the clients somebody can come to your session or come for assistance to you. Make sure you tell them about confidentiality, because whatever you discuss there is very confidential. And unless there is a threat to life, then the confidentiality will have to be broken. So the autonomy will have to be considered at that point. So and the next one is beneficence. So under beneficence, it refers taking responsibility to promote the welfare of the client. You as a client, as a counselor, you as a helper, your work is to take responsibility to promote the welfare of this client. Is to you doing what enhances the well-being of that client. It is doing or making decisions that should benefit the client. So make sure anything that you do, it is to promote the welfare of this client. It is make sure that the client is comfortable in whatever you do. So whatever decision you make sure that as a counselor, as a caregiver, as a helper, it's for the benefit of the client or the person who has come for assistance. And another one that under counseling ethics is non-maleficence, which in counseling, which refers commitment to exercise care to avoid activities that can cause harm to the clients. You're committed to exercise care to avoid activities that can cause harm to the clients, either psychologically, either physically, and or emotionally. So there is need to avoid situations involving conflicts of interest. And in this conflict of interest, sometimes you find that people are not comfortable when you're in a setup, when the two of you maybe are talking or you're counseling or you're guiding or helping your client. And there's some things, there are some people are not comfortable in doing, like in church, sometimes when somebody has gone through grief and you tell the person to sit down and be able to talk to an empty chair, that is conflict of interest for them. They feel like you're hurting them. Try as much as a counselor or as a caregiver, don't to in terms of conflict of interest, really observe that. Also, ability to avoid activities that have high risk of hurting clients. Make sure you do not hurt the client in any way, as I've said, psychologically, physically, or emotionally. And another thing is, and maybe is about justice, which refers you providing equal and fair treatment to all clients despite of their background. If one of the young people come to you and they are not of the same gender, not of the same age, not same race or ethnicity or culture, or they have any disability, make sure you give them fair treatment as a caregiver. And if you feel that you're not able to give them that fair treatment, just be genuine, refer them, because you're many within your space. Refer that client to, or that person to another person who can be able to handle them. And another one is about fidelity. And in fidelity, what I mean is that be honest with your client, making honest promises to your client or to the person who has come for assistance. And because, and also honoring commitment to your clients or to the person who has come for assistance. Creating a trusting relationship, that is fidelity. Make sure that you're honest, you're genuine. If you're not able to come on time, make sure that you inform your client, you inform that person, tell that person, I'm not able to come at this time, maybe we reschedule for another day, and keep your promise. That is important. And one of the most important thing in counseling, or in counseling generally, is confidentiality. So confidentiality, as I've said there, confidentiality is an ethical concern reflecting on the right to privacy. So remember, when that person is coming to you, observe confidentiality. Whatever they tell you, make sure you do not disclose it. You do not break, you not breach, you don't share to other people. And as I said there, confidentiality is the duty not to willingly disclose any information obtained in confidence. So confidentiality is really key in counseling. And what is the role of confidentiality here? The role of confidentiality in counseling, one, is to help. It helps in building a trusting relationship. It protects the clients from unauthorized disclosure. It helps the client protected from any stigma and discrimination associated with counseling. And finally, it makes clients feel safe from physical or psychological. I think that one is straightforward for in terms of confidentiality. And finally, and I want to share with you that one may not remember what was said during your interaction, during your counseling, during when you're assisting that person. But the person will remember how you made them feel. So it is very important. And finally, that's what I would like to share. I'd like to share with you. So that is it.